Hi guys, today we have to talk about what is rumbling around in California at the San Andreas Fault, and could water be the reason why that fault line is so active and why everyone is waiting for a big one within the next 30 years. So it has been rumbling in California a lot in the last few days, and just today, in the evening today, there was a large earthquake in Bakersfield. Bakersfield is not far from the San Andreas Fault. So there have been 28 reported aftershocks following a magnitude 5.2 earthquake in that Bakersfield area. You see it here on the map on Tuesday night, and you see how far it spreads out and where it has been felt in which areas. So the earthquakes were reported around 9:10 p.m. So far, there were no immediate reports about any damage, but people reported feeling the earthquakes as far as Los Angeles, Santa Clarita, and Long Beach, and also stretching into the Santa Barbara area. So what is the USGS saying? They're saying there's a 7% chance that one or more aftershocks could be even larger than the 5.2 magnitude earthquake. So definitely they're expecting smaller aftershocks within the next week. And they even think that at least 41 of these aftershocks will have a magnitude of 3 and higher. So definitely not a microseismic swarm. It's definitely something bigger, and there have already been 12 aftershocks that have been reported at magnitude 3 or higher as of 10 p.m. local time there. So that's what the seismologists are saying. It's having a lot of aftershocks, and they say that's a pretty active sequence for this pretty short amount of time.
Again tonight with that 5.2 magnitude earthquake that rattled Kern County, Bakersfield, and even beyond. Tammy, I know that you felt it earlier. It was quite the shock.
Yes, it was. It lasted a very long time. It definitely felt like it was going on. We've had numerous aftershocks.
So it's a little bit out of the usual. It is something significant, and that's why I thought I'll let you know about this.
It's not just one, it's not just two. We're talking dozens of earthquakes. Let's talk about the two biggest ones, though, that most of us felt. It first started at 9:10 p.m. with this 5.2 magnitude earthquake that a lot of us felt. A lot of us even getting that emergency alert on our phones telling us that that big earthquake was on the way. Then we felt less than a minute later a 4.5 magnitude earthquake. You can see these big circles here, which of course indicate that those earthquakes happened between 1 and 12 hours ago. Those are what we consider older earthquakes, are in yellow. But take a look at all of these earthquakes right here in red. Those are the aftershocks.
So in general, we know earthquakes come without warning, and if you aren't prepared by the time that the earthquake hits or a big one hits in that area, it might be too late. So that's why it is so important to be prepared, have a disaster kit plan ready, and stuff like this. But what we need to talk about is, since we're talking about the San Andreas Fault, is an area that has also seen an earthquake swarm, and that might be related to water, and it's very, very interesting. So California has been hit this week by many earthquakes, and that of course sparks concerns about what could have caused this spate of quakes. So let's talk about a 3.3 magnitude tremor that has struck 32 miles southeast of Coachella around 1:39 a.m. on Sunday in that area. And we'll get to it, why this area is interesting and why this could explain what's going on there. There have been actually 5 earthquakes in a short period of time, and that's why the scientists are a little bit alerted. So hey, wait a minute, what is going on? So they have originated from Salton City in California. You see the map here where that is, and these earthquakes, these larger earthquakes came with a swarm of earthquakes. So an earthquake swarm. So usually you have a bigger one, and then a lot of other smaller quakes are surrounding that bigger one when it comes to timing. So it's close together, and that's called a seismic swarm. So there was a 3.0 magnitude that has reached El Centro. That's the largest city in an area that is called Imperial Valley. That is about 42 miles away from Salton City in California. And what we need to know about that region, it sits on the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. And this area, the southern end, poses the largest seismic hazard in the state of California. So we have to know, on average, Southern California, we know that's an earthquake area, right? So it's experiencing roughly 10,000 earthquakes each year. And for people who live in that area, it is kind of a normal thing for them. I have lived in California for a while. I went to university there, and when I was in my dormitory, yeah, I felt the shaking too. I haven't felt anything bigger, just really, really small ones. So I was lucky, but you feel it. For me, it wasn't normal at that time, but I'm aware of this. So 10,000 earthquakes each year, but the Los Angeles region is expected to experience a magnitude 6.7 earthquake or higher within the next 30 years. So that is expected. It can happen tomorrow, it can happen in 30 years, maybe longer than that, but definitely it will happen. That's what they think. So the USGS has done a geological survey on this, and they're pretty sure. But since seismology, geology, volcanology, all these areas are not progressed very far, they can't make predictions that are not even close to accurate, right? So, but what they can say is, well, if there's a seismic swarm, be careful, something else might happen. It's an indication. So you see a picture of the road here that has happened. The roads are cracking because of these movements. As I said, there were 5 larger earthquakes. So another earthquake, 3.3 magnitude, did strike Salton City and affected people living in Ocotillo Wells, Oasis, and Borrego Springs. I'll get to it in a minute. Wow, how this is all connected with water, because that's the interesting topic that this video is about mainly today. Then we had another 2.6 magnitude quake that hit the area just a day earlier. And then there was another one, magnitude 3.4, a 2.6, and a 2.8 did strike the area within the same days, basically starting August 2nd, that sort of thing. And August 6th today, we had the 5.2. So it's all very, very close together. The good thing is, also, there were reportedly no immediate damages or injuries reported in this area as well in wake of the earthquakes. Aftershocks also happening in this area. And you have to know, in May, there was another earthquake swarm. There were quakes, at least 16 quakes with magnitude 3 or higher that did strike that region. So it's not the isolated one earthquake this month and 4 months later another one. No, it's a swarm. It's clustered together. So something is moving, that tectonic plates probably. So the current quakes that are happening in this area that's called Imperial Valley, as I said, they're being called a swarm, and they have been common in the valley, but it's a little bit clustered right now. So at what depth are they happening? The USGS has confirmed that these earthquakes did start just 2.2 miles beneath the surface. So usually people only feel the earthquakes that have a magnitude 3 or higher, but it also depends on how deep the quake is. If quakes are very shallow, people feel them usually a lot more. But you have to know, At their deepest point, quakes can go as deep as 400 miles underground. So that's why it's considered shallow. 2 miles, that's not much, right? So basically, what are we calling shallow? Earthquakes that are 43 miles or less are considered shallow. So here we have 2 miles. That's very shallow, I would say. The shallow earthquakes, right? These earthquakes, they will usually only result in mild to moderate damage. So what did scientists believe where these earthquakes were coming from? So there is a basin that is called the Salton Sea Basin, and they thought that the earthquakes were triggered by that basin. And now you might wonder, what? How can a basin trigger earthquakes? That's weird, because that basin, depending on what's happening with rain and weather and water conditions, was filling up with water, which in turn did fill a lake. The lake is called Lake Cahuilla or Cahuilla. I don't know. Don't bash me about how I pronounce this. I would call it Lake Cahuilla. Call it whatever you want. But I'll show it to you here on the map, then you know that. So since that basin was filling up, it was also filling that lake. Both the basin and the lake, they are located in Imperial Valley, where we have seen the earthquakes. So what's the connection? Researchers from the San Diego State University have found out, or have stated in a study that's from 2023, that when the lake's water level rose, whenever they did rise, it was causing more weight to push on the surrounding crust, and therefore it forced the water to recede underground. And that receding underground of the water intruding into that area, they're saying this was causing the fault line to rupture and trigger seismic activity. So that sounds kind of scary in my point of view. But there's one thing that is happening to that lake that I don't know how to pronounce, the Lake Cahuilla. So already back since the early 1900s, that basin and the lake have started to dry up. So not much water. There used to be way more water. So they have conducted a new study in 2023, and it said that although the earthquakes have reached a lower magnitude, the strain that this has put to the tectonic plates has continued to grow, and could cause another major earthquake in the region. So is the drying of the Salton Sea good? It depends on from what point of view you're looking at, right? I mean, California has a water problem, and it's not good if the lakes are drying out. But in terms of what it does with the earthquake activity, the factors that it is drying out has contributed somewhat to stabilizing the southern San Andreas Fault. But what they're saying also at the same time is, because this is a tectonic movement, that fault line, the tectonic stress that is driven by plate motion that is happening, definitely, right, is considerably greater. And it continues to accumulate stress on the fault. So despite the fact that we're losing one factor that might increase seismic activity, the fault line is getting ready to do something. That's what scientists are saying. So basically what the conclusion of this is, there's a link between the lake and the earthquakes, and basically they say that stems from induced seismicity from the water. That means when a quake is triggered by forces that are outside of the normal stress interactions between tectonic plates. And that's interesting. So outside of the tectonic plates, that was the water that did infiltrate the ground. And if we're talking about nature, yes, that generally happens when large reservoirs fill with water. But we are doing something as well that could trigger this. And we've seen this all over the US in areas where this is actually happening. So it has been linked, these seismic events have been linked to hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, because in order to be successful with fracking, to release natural gas for energy, wastewater is injected into the earth to release that natural gas. So that's the same thing, right? The water is infiltrating the crust. So basically what the science says, earthquakes are more frequent where there's water involved in the way that I just described. And their conclusion is this could be one of the reasons why the San Andreas Fault is one of the most active fault lines in the world. And it causes thousands of earthquakes in California every year. And of these thousands of earthquakes, there's roughly about 500 earthquakes that can be felt by the residents. So over the year, that is quite a lot, I would say. So guys, I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please leave this video a like. If you're new here, please subscribe. And guys, I wanted to say thank you for supporting my new second channel that I have just announced yesterday. And it was great to see that so many of you already came over and subscribed and commented and watched the videos. And to all my 42,000, I think 500 subscribers, if you could go over to that channel and help me reach the 1,000 subscribers to monetize that channel, that would be awesome. And of course, watch the videos. I hope it's interesting for you. That creates the necessary watch hours that I need as well. It's so amazing. You know, when I started the second channel and you look in your statistics and you start from scratch, it reminds me how I started this channel On the Pulse with Silky, and never, ever, ever would I have imagined how far this channel would get me. And this is because of you guys, that you're watching this channel, you're interacting with me on this channel, and I'm beyond grateful for what you have done to grow this channel to what it is. And I'm excited to grow this channel even further. So I never thought, you know, I thought, well, if I reach 5,000 subscribers, I'm very, very lucky, right? And then 42,000. So I don't know if I should be daring to say, hey guys, let's get a target of 100,000 subscribers. I mean, that is, I'm just streaming, guys, but you know, it makes you humble when I'm starting that second channel, because it reminds me how this one started out not very long ago. So yeah, check out the other channel. I want to report about recent world news or threats or what's happening. So it won't affect this channel. It'll be just a different topics away from what we're discussing here. This is basically more what Mother Nature does. And on the other side, on the other channel, that's by the way called News with Silky, I put the links to this channel in the description of this video. So please go there, subscribe, like the videos. So News with Silky will be more what mankind does and not Mother Nature. So thanks for watching, guys. I see you here, I see you there. Thanks so much. Stay safe. Bye-bye.